let's see, where to pick up. They make their way through the paths of the dead. And on page 789, Aragorn asks the Oathbreakers, "Why have ye come?" And they say, to fulfill our oath and have peace. So Aragorn leads them. And we get to chapter 3, the Muster of Rohan. Now notice what Tolkien is doing here in The Return of the King. As I was talking about the other day, beginning with the end of Fellowship of the Ring and the start of Two Towers, Tolkien starts taking off these narrative threads. Tolkien starts taking off these narrative threads, and we see Sam and Frodo go off one place, and Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli go off another. Merry and Pippin go off another. Well, now he's taking those even more, so that we're going to see now another little breaking off. We're going to have Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli go to the paths of the dead, and Merry gets separated from them, so that Merry now gets left with the Riders of Rohan. And we find out Merry wants to go with them, as does Éowyn, we've already heard. And we see, let's see, let me pick up. On page 804, the very end of that chapter, the Muster of Rohan. Merry's unhappy because he's being left behind. Theoden does not want Merry to come into battle with him because he doesn't want anything bad to happen to Merry. And Merry walks away, and a rider comes up to Merry and speaks into his ear. And the rider says, "You wish to go whither the Lord of the Mark goes. I see it in your face." And Merry says, "I do." After all, Merry swore and offered his sword to Theoden. The rider says, "Then you shall go with me. I will bury you before me under my cloak until we are far afield, and this darkness is yet darker. Such goodwill should not be denied. Say no more to any man, but come." And Merry says, "Thank you, but I don't know your name." And the rider says, "Do you not? And call me Durnhelm." Okay, that name Durnhelm is a compound. It's made up of two elements. The first half, Dern, D-E-R-N, comes from the Old English word, the Anglo-Saxon word, D-Y-R-N-E. And what it means is secret or hidden. Helm also is an Old English or Anglo-Saxon word, and it just means protector. It doesn't mean helmet. Okay? So secret or hidden protector is what the name Durnhelm means. And then we get to the chapter, The Siege of Gondor. Notice what Tolkien has done here. We began with chapter 1 with Gandalf and Pippin in Minas Tirith. Chapter 2 was largely Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, and them breaking off from Theoden. Chapter 3 was Merry now left with Theoden and the Riders of Rohan, and now we go back to the Siege of Gondor, and we're going back to Gandalf and Pippin. And so we get a long description of what happens. We have Faramir come in, and Faramir sees Pippin and is surprised to see another hobbit. Page 811, he says, "This is not the first halfling that I've seen walking out of northern legends into the Southlands." And so they talk. And you can tell fairly quickly that there is tension between Faramir and Denethor. Page 812. Gandalf asks Faramir, when did he part with Frodo and Sam? And he says, in the morning 2 days ago. Okay, and he tells them they were going to Cirith Ungol. And then Faramir looks at his father, Denethor, and asks, I hope that I have not done ill. And Denethor cries, Ill? Why do you ask? The men were under your command, or do you ask for my judgment on all your deeds? Your bearing is lowly in my presence, yet it is long now since you turned from your own way at my counsel. See, you have spoken skillfully as ever. But have not I seen your eye fixed on Mithrandir, seeking whether you said well or too much? He has long had your heart in his keeping. Alas, alas for Boromir. Denethor is showing there that he wishes Boromir had lived and Faramir had died in his stead. In fact, Faramir even asks him, I wish I had known your counsel before the burden of so weighty a judgment was thrust on me. And Denethor says, would that have availed to change your judgment? You would still have not done just so. Excuse me, you would still have done just so, I deem. And he's right. Because Faramir is not the heroic warrior that Boromir is. Boromir is like the masculine version of Eowyn. Boromir only seeks personal glory and fame. Yes, he wants what's good for Gondor too. Don't get me wrong there. But he seeks personal glory, personal fame. Okay? Faramir doesn't. Faramir acts as a steward. Faramir seeks what is good for others, for whatever it is he is steward of. And so Faramir asks, top of 8:13, do you wish then that our places had been exchanged? That is, that I had died instead of Boromir? Yes, I wish that indeed, said Denethor. For Boromir was loyal to me and no wizard's pupil. He would have brought me a mighty gift. Okay? And then Faramir reminds him, I was the one who wanted to go to Imladris. And Denethor says, don't remind me. And then Gandalf intervenes and says, you know, Denethor, Boromir would not have brought you this thing. And Gandalf says he's dead, he's died well, but you deceive yourself. He would have kept it for his own, and when he returned, you would not have known your son. And Denethor thinks that Gandalf says that only because Gandalf couldn't control Boromir. So Gandalf says, okay, so what is your wisdom? What would you have done? And Denethor and Gandalf talk for quite a while. And Denethor says, what would I have done? I would have taken this thing. I would have hidden it. I would have kept it secret. And Gandalf says, you couldn't have. And Gandalf says, top of 8:14, I do not trust you. And hearing you speak, I trust you less, no more than Boromir. No, stay your wrath. I do not trust myself in this. In other words, when he tells Denethor, I don't trust you, he's saying, and you're in good company. I don't even trust myself with this thing. That's why we sent it away. Okay? So they talk about strengthening the defenses of Gondor and the garrison at Osgiliath. Gandalf and Pippin talk for a bit. And then the next day, Faramir comes back on page 816. And Faramir is having a talk with Denethor again. Bottom of the page. Denethor says, I do not oppose your will, sire. Since you are robbed of Boromir, I will go and do what I can in his stead, if you command it. Denethor, I do so. Then farewell. But if I should return, think better of me. Now, Faramir is saying there, if I return, that is, if I'm not killed in battle, then think more highly of me. Denethor, that depends on the manner of your return. Even in his final words to his son, before his son goes off to battle, Denethor cannot be magnanimous. When he says that depends on the manner of your return, he is suggesting that Faramir may return as a coward. He may return tail between his legs. Denethor is essentially saying what those old Spartan wives said to their husbands: return with your shield or on it. Gandalf catches Faramir and says, don't throw your life away rashly. Your father loves you, Faramir, and he will remember it before the end. Okay? So the battle begins. The Nazgul come, the orcs batter against the gates of Minas Tirith and such. Faramir is brought in, sick, wounded, and Denethor takes him to the halls of the dead. And he releases Pippin from his charge. And he says, go your way, go seek your own death, essentially. If he says, right in the middle, page 825, go now and die in what way seems best to you, and with whom you will, even that friend whose folly brought you to this death. Okay? So Denethor goes to the houses of the dead. Pippin leaves, and Pippin thinks, I've got to go find Gandalf. This isn't good. Denethor is going to kill himself, and he's going to kill Faramir in the process. So Pippin runs down to find Gandalf. He first sees Baragon, and he tells Baragon what Denethor is doing. And so Baragon goes up to Denethor, and we don't see what all happens at that point. But we're left at the end of the chapter, page 829, with a magnificent scene. For the first time in Gondorian history, the gates of Gondor are breached. They're battered open with Gron, the battering ram. And we get this wonderful description on page 829. In rode the Lord of the Nazgul, a great black shape against the